This episode is brought to you by Bellator's Publishing, bringing stories to the world that last forever.
Hello and welcome to Faithfully Fantasy,
A husband and wife podcast talking all things fantasy fiction.
I'm JC.
And I'm Sean.
And today we'll be talking about the best fantasy books of the last 100 years. Fantasy has always been about imagination, worlds where dragons soar, heroes rise, and magic change everything.
But how did we get from Lord of the Rings to Fourth Wing? Today we're taking a journey through 100 years of fantasy books. The stories that shaped generations, inspired movies, and built the worlds we can't stop dreaming about.
And we start with the 1920s to the 1930s, their foundations. And we're gonna start with The Worm Out of Bottles by E.R. Edison in 1922. Before The Lord of the Rings, there was The Worm Out of Bottles, the book that helped shape modern fantasy as we know it. Even Tolkien himself, the author of The Lord of the Rings, said it inspired him. This story takes us to a faraway world where two mighty kingdoms are locked in an endless war. There are brave warriors, powerful witches, and battles fought on stormy mountains and deep beneath the sea. E.R. Edison wrote it like an ancient myth, big, bold, and full of drama, like something out of the legends of King Arthur or the Old Norse sagas. It's a story about courage, betrayal, and adventure on the grandest scale, one that set the stage for every fantasy epic that came after. The rating for this book, 4 stars.
Next is Conan the Barbarian Stories by Robert E. Howard, first written in 1932. Before superheroes and fantasy blockbusters, there was Conan the Barbarian, the original warrior hero. Created by Robert E. Howard back in the 1930s, Conan first appeared in old pulp magazines, full of action and adventure. He's a tough, sword-swinging fighter from the wild land called Cimmeria, a man who battles monsters, wizards, and evil kings. Howard wrote 21 stories about Conan before his death, and Conan's legend only grew from there. Today, Conan lives on in comics, books, movies, games, and even TV shows. He's the blueprint for the classic fantasy hero, strong, fearless, and ready to fight his way through any world. Also, the book inspired later dark fantasy and Dungeons & Dragons aesthetics. The rating for this book is also 4 stars on Goodreads. Up next, the 1950s, the birth of modern fantasy.
And we go into 1950 with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is the story that opened the door to Narnia. Literally, is the most famous book in the Chronicles of Narnia series. It starts in England during wartime, when 4 children are sent to live in the big old house. The youngest, Lucy, finds a magical wardrobe that leads to Narnia, a snowy world full of talking animals and mythical creatures ruled by the evil White Witch. With the help of the great lion Aslan, the children go on a quest to break the witch's spells and bring spring back to Narnia. It's a story of courage, sacrifice, and hope, and one of the most beloved fantasy adventures ever written. This book made fantasy mainstream for children. The rating for this book, 4 stars.
Okay, next, The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien, 1954 to 1955. This is the single most influential fantasy series ever written. The Lord of the Rings is the ultimate fantasy adventure, the story that shaped everything that came after it. Written by J.R.R. Tolkien, it started as a sequel to The Hobbit, but grew into one of the biggest and most loved epics ever told. Set in the world of Middle-earth, it follows Frodo, a small hobbit with a huge task, to destroy the One Ring, a powerful object created by the Dark Lord Sauron to control the world. Frodo is joined by a fellowship of heroes, Gandalf the Wizard, Aragorn the Ranger, Legolas the Elf, Gimli the dwarf and his friends Sam, Merry and Pippin. Their journey takes them from peaceful Shire to the dark lands of Mordor, facing battles, temptation and sacrifice along the way. It's a story about friendship, courage and the fight against impossible odds, the very heart of fantasy itself. Defined by epic quests, detailed languages, maps and lore, it's the blueprint for modern high fantasy. The rating for this book is, of course, 5 stars.
And we're going now to 1960s, defined by expanding imagination. And we're going to start with A Wrinkle in Time. It's a classic adventure through space, time, and everything in between. Written by Madeleine L'Engle in 1962, it's a story about courage, family, and the power of love. Meg Murray, her brother Charles Wallace, and the friend Calvin travels across galaxies to rescue Meg's missing father. Along the way, they face a dark force known as the Black Thing, a shadow spreading evil across the universe. This book mixes science and magic, light and darkness, and good and evil, all while showing how even ordinary kids can do extraordinary things. It's one of the first stories to blend fantasy and science fiction and still inspire readers today. This book opened doors for cross-genre fantasy. The rating for the book? 4 stars.
The Chronicles of Prydain by Lord Alexander, 1964 to 1968. This book influenced countless young adult fantasies and inspired Disney's The Black Cauldron. It's full of magic, heroes, and creatures inspired by Welsh myths, and it's all about growing up and finding your place in the world. The story follows Taran, a young boy who dreams of being a great hero but starts off as an assistant pig keeper. His job? To look after a magical pig named Hen Wen, who can see the future. But when danger threatens the land of Prydain, Taran sets off on a quest that changes everything. It's a story of courage, friendship, and becoming who you're meant to be, the perfect mix of magic and heart. The book rating is 4 stars. And now, the 1970s, the rise of the epic series.
Watership Down by Richard Adams, 1972. It follows a brave group of rabbits who are forced to flee their home when humans destroy their warren. Together, they journey across the English countryside in search of a safe new home, the hill known as Watership Down. These aren't ordinary rabbits. They have their own language, stories, and legends, giving the world a rich and deep culture. Along their journey, they face dangers, meet other rabbits group, and learn what it truly means to survive and lead. The book was a huge success, winning major awards like the Carnegie Medal and the Guardian Prize. It's been adapted into films and TV series, most recently a 3D animated version on Netflix. At its heart, Watership Down is a tale of courage, freedom, and the power of hope, showing that even the smallest creature can make epic heroes. The book rating? 4 stars.
Next, The Sword of Shannara, Terry Brooks, 1977. This book is a classic high fantasy novel set in a world known as the Fourlands. The story follows 2 main threads. One centres on Shay Omsford, a young hero destined to wield the legendary Sword of Shannara against the Dark Warlock Lord. The other follows Prince Balinor, who fights to reclaim his throne and protect his kingdom of Callahorn from the Warlock Lord's invading armies. Written over 7 years while Brooks was in law school, the novel explores themes of ordinary heroism and the shadow of destruction, even hinting at a world born from nuclear ruin. When The Sword of Shannara was released, it became a huge commercial success and helped spark the modern fantasy boom. Critics noticed its strong resemblance to The Lord of the Rings, but fans embraced its adventure, world-building, and timeless battle between good and evil. It brought high fantasy to mass-market success post-Tolkien. This also was the first fantasy novel to hit the New York Times bestseller list. The book rating? 4 stars.
1980s, The Age of Worlds and Series. The Belgariad by David Eddings, 1992 to 1984. It's a 5-book fantasy epic that follows young Garion on a classic hero's journey, from humble beginnings to facing the dark god Thorak himself. Alongside a group of memorable companions, Garion sets out to recover a sacred stone that holds the fate of the world. First published in the 1980s, The Belgariad became an instant bestseller and marked a turning point in fantasy literature. It blended the traditional quest structure, prophecy, magical mentors, ancient gods with humor, emotional depth, and accessible storytelling that appeal to a new generation of readers. Eddins, who started the series after noticing the continued success of The Lord of the Rings, helped usher in the age of long-running fantasy sagas. The series is often described as both the last gasp of classic high fantasy and one of the first mega sagas that shaped modern fantasy storytelling. The book rating, 4 stars.
The Dragon Riders of Pern, Anne McCaffrey, 1968 to 1989, is a legendary science fantasy series that started in 1967. The story takes place on the planet Pern, where humans live in a world constantly threatened by deadly spores called Thread that can destroy crops, animals, and even people. To fight Thread, humans raise fire-breathing dragons. Each dragon is telepathically bonded to a rider from birth, creating a lifelong partnership. If a rider dies, their dragon dies too, and losing a dragon leaves a wound that never fully heals. The series blends adventure, science fiction, and emotional depth. McCaffrey's dragons became iconic, and she made history as the first woman to win both a Hugo and a Nebula Award for her fiction. With over 24 novels and counting, Pern remains one of the most beloved fantasy worlds ever created. This book merged sci-fi and fantasy with sentient dragons, and also pioneered female-led fantasy and built a long-running universe. This book rating, 4 stars.
I was never meant to love a human. But then, I saw her. I wasn't supposed to touch that fruit, but I took it, and I ate it. I was the most loyal of angels, until I lost her. Now they call me the devil, and I'll burn heaven itself before I lose her again.
Memoirs of Luzbel, a dark fantasy novel. Book 1 of the Luzbel saga. Now available on Amazon.
And now the 1990s modern blockbusters.
A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin, 1996, still not finished. It's a dark epic fantasy series that began with the first book, A Game of Thrones, in 1996. The story takes place on the continents of Westeros and Essos, where noble families fight for the Iron Throne and control of the realm. Magic exists, but is rare and mysterious, while political intrigue, betrayal, and moral choices drive the story. The series is told from many characters' point of view, so anyone can rise or fall at any time. No one is safe. Inspired by real history like the Wars of the Roses, the series blends wars, power, struggles, dragons, and looming supernatural threat from the far north. It's gritty, complex, and unpredictable, the kind of fantasy where no one's story is guaranteed to have a happy ending. This series inspired the HBO phenomenon Game of Thrones, bringing fantasy to prestige TV. The book rating, 5 stars.
Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone by J.K. Rowling. This is the book that started one of the biggest fantasy series ever. Written in 1997, it introduces Harry, an ordinary boy who discovers on his 11th birthday that he's a wizard. Harry goes to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, makes friends like Ron and Hermione, and faces many challenges, including the dark wizard Voldemort, the one who killed his parents and tried to kill him as a baby. It's a story about friendship, bravery, and discovering your own magic. The book became a worldwide phenomenon, selling 120 million copies, translated into dozens of languages, and turned into a blockbuster film series. The book rating is 5 stars. Into the 2000s, where globalization and complexity reign.
Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. It's an epic fantasy series that started in 2006 with the Final Empire. The story takes place in a dark, ash-covered world ruled by a cruel emperor. A small group of rebels called Allomancers have magical powers that let them manipulate metal to fight back and try to overthrow the empire. The first trilogy is full of heists, battles, and clever magic, while later series explore new characters, cities, and mysteries in the same world. Sanderson's Mistborn books are part of his larger Cosmere universe, connecting them to other stories like the Stormlight Archive. This book introduced detailed magic system with logic and rules. Sanderson's influence on modern fantasy structure is enormous. The book rating, 5 stars.
The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss is the first book in the King Killer Chronicle, published in 2007. It tells the story of Kvothe, a legendary hero and musician, as he recalls his life of adventure, magic, and loss. Set in the land of Temerant, the world blends normal life with magic, a mysterious realm called the Fae. Magic follows rules, and only those who study it carefully can use it. Kvothe is smart, talented, and determined to master the magical arts while uncovering the secrets of dangerous creatures known as the Chandrian. The book mixes epic adventure, clever magic, and a story of growing up, showing how one boy becomes a legend through courage, skill, and the power of knowledge. The book rating is 5 stars. 2010's The Rise of the FMC.
The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. This is a thrilling dystopian series that started in 2008. It follows Katniss Everdeen, a brave teenager living in Panem, a country divided between the rich capital and poor districts. Every year, the capital forces 2 kids from each district to compete in the Hunger Games, a daily televised fight for survival. Katniss volunteers to save her sister, and her courage sparks rebellion against the cruel system. The series mixes action, strategy, and political drama while exploring themes of survival, sacrifice, and fighting for what's right. It became a global phenomenon, selling over 100 million copies, inspiring blockbuster movies, and influencing young adult fiction for years. The book rating, 4 stars.
A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas is a fantasy romance series that started in 2015. It follows 19-year-old Feyre Archeron, who is brought into the magical fairy lands of Prythian, where she discovers love, danger, and power she never imagined. Feyre navigates the courts of the Fae, facing fierce enemies, epic battles, and a romance that changed all of our lives. The story mixes action, magic, and romance, creating a world that readers can't get enough of. The series has sold over 13 million copies and is a New York Times bestseller. The book had a massive influence on BookTok and new adult fantasy markets. The book rating, 4 stars.
2020s, the TikTok and diversity era. The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. This book can be described as a cozy fantasy revival, emotional, inclusive storytelling. It's a magical, heartwarming story about Linus Baker, a quiet man who works for a government agency overseeing magical children. Linus is sent to a secret orphanage on Marseilles Island where 6 unusual children live. A gnome, a sprite, a wyvern, a green blob, a wet Pomeranian, and even the Antichrist. He must decide whether these kids are too dangerous for the world, but he soon learns there's more to them than meets the eye. With the help of the kind caretaker, Arthur Parnassus, Linus discovered friendship, love, and the true meaning of family. It's a magical story about acceptance, courage, and finding home in the most unexpected places. The book rating, 4 stars.
Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. This is a thrilling new adult fantasy romance that came out in 2023. It follows Violet Sorrengail, who is forced by her mother to join the Basgiath War College and train as a dragon rider in the Kingdom of Navarre. Violet must survive deadly challenges, face dangerous rivals, and avoid one of the most powerful riders, Zayden Ryerson, all while discovering her own strength and courage. The story mixes dragons, romance, and high-stakes adventure. The book went viral on BookTok and has sold millions of copies and has been translated into about 30 languages. It's a story about bravery, love, and proving that even those who seem fragile can be true heroes. The book rating is 5 stars.
And that's our look at 100 years of fantasy books.
Did we miss any of your favorites? Drop them in the comments. We want to hear what you think belongs on this list.
If you love this journey, remember like and subscribe so you don't miss our next adventure. And with that, we have just one more thing to say. Thank you for listening to Faithfully Fantasy,
the husband and wife podcast talking all things fantasy fiction.
We'll see you next time with more fun and, of course, with more Faithfully Fantasy.
Bye!